Well, aloha everyone, and thank you for spending your lunchtime here with us. I want to say congratulations and mahalo to the Honda International Center team. Congratulations for getting the International Festival officially launched yesterday. It's really happy to be here on such a significant occasion, and this is a first opportunity to really bring the grants office and HIC team together. So really in good company today. And I'm really thankful for all the faculty who joined us to chat about ideas and just expand our world together. My name is Brandon Marquiga, and I serve as the director of the grants office by day and think a lot about international study abroad programs at night and all waking hours of the day. So today I'd like to talk about how faculty can design and develop international education opportunities for students and yourselves, using a combination of partnerships, institutional support, and external funding. International education can take many forms, from short-term study tours to hosting international delegations or developing long-term partnerships with overseas institutions. So my goal today is to demystify how these programs can begin, what kinds of funding opportunities exist, and how faculty here at Kapiolani can start exploring their own ideas. So earlier we had a chance to introduce ourselves, and we're joined by a cross-section of people from all departments and disciplines. Really, really grateful to hear about all of your interests, and also welcome you to fill out the survey that HIC put together in conjunction with the festival. It's a really, really great study and got me thinking about all kinds of different opportunities to pursue. So I wanted to reintroduce myself just from the perspective of why we're here today. I've had the opportunity to participate in several international programs through college and law school, and also working here at Kapiolani. As a student, I studied abroad in Japan through the Freeman and Boren programs, and later studied Korean through the Critical Language Scholarship. I also had the opportunity to intern overseas while living in Japan at the US Embassy in Tokyo and their National Assembly, their equivalent of the Congress. And it's really interesting because through those internships, it went from people telling me, oh, you're American, can you teach me English, to my friend needs a visa. So I felt so popular and in demand, like after those internships, although I had nothing to do with the visa process. I was really looking at agricultural imports, and just my cool job was testing out restaurants to see if they're actually using American products overseas. So love to eat. So more recently, my current work involves developing international partnerships, and one example is a program that the HIC helped to develop with the University of the Ryukyus. We just welcomed them yesterday in the Engage space. Really want to give a shout out to Gigi for giving us like the perfect, most scenic and gorgeous room possible to start the program. So I've organized today's chat in 4 parts. Please stop me at any point because each of these warrants a lot of discussion, and we have the experts in the room with the HIC team. So good chance to chat and ask. First, I'd like to talk about different models of faculty-led international programs. Next, we'll talk about the extramural funding landscape and what we do at the grants office to support you with that. And then third, we'll walk through some budgeting to just start thinking about the ideas we heard earlier, really translating that vision and dream into something you can start jotting notes down in your iPhone or on an envelope, and getting you closer to that opportunity when the funding comes through. Finally, I'll cover some next steps. I'll revisit the conference list and other things that Sean shared earlier with the audience. And hopefully those are ways that we can just get started and connect with people who are in this community of practice. So faculty-led international education programs generally fall into 3 categories. First, short-term outbound programs where faculty take students abroad for a short course or a learning experience. Second, short-term inbound programs where we host visiting students or professionals from other countries. And third, exploratory faculty visits, which are often the starting point for building international partnerships. There's more than this. There's long-term 4-credit programs too, and we can go into that as well. So these exploratory visits that allow faculty to visit institutions abroad, meet potential collaborators, and explore opportunities for future exchanges. Many successful international programs actually begin with these exploratory conversations. So why international education now? International education is not just about travel or cultural exposure, although those are definitely great reasons to go and spark interest and curiosity. International education plays an important role in preparing students for a workplace that is increasingly global. So even as you hear the current federal administration say that they're pursuing the global age of America, if you really read the policy documents, it includes study abroad to gain skills that are otherwise not available here, and is to strengthen what we do overseas and domestically for economic, national security, and other purposes. So today's industries, as we can all speak to in Hawaii, they operate across national borders, and employers are looking for graduates who can work in international environments, communicate across cultures, and understand global systems. Federal agencies are also emphasizing international competencies in their funding priorities. At the same time, community colleges like Kapiolani play a unique role in expanding access to global opportunities for students who might not otherwise have those experiences. So what global skills do you think our students need most for the future workforce? That's something I'd encourage you to all think about in the context of your classes, your discipline, and other things that you're passionate about working on. You might think about communication, language skills, cultural awareness, or understanding international industries and how they intersect with what we do here in Hawaii and the US. So I've got here a list of a lot of really exciting outbound programs that the HIC team has designed and implemented. I'd encourage you to check that out because there's a wide range of countries and individuals who have led these short-term programs, and they're really the experts who can speak more to this. So I'll give a really quick overview. One common model for short-term faculty-led study abroad programs typically involve 1 or 2 week long programs that are integrated within courses that are offered, and it can be customized. So students might complete a pre-departure course, coursework before traveling, and then participate in academic activities abroad. So these programs can be tailored to specific disciplines and different lengths of time. I think this typically takes place either in winter term or summer from what I've seen. So for example, there's been, say, like legal immersion programs for pre-law students, culinary hospitality site visits, sustainability or environmental field studies. Short-term programs are often the most accessible model because they fit within academic schedules and are more affordable than semester-long study abroad programs. And I think that access piece is especially important from what HIC learned through surveys in the past, according to our students and their responsibilities to family and other things. So something I've learned more about recently are short-term inbound programs that you can host. This is another model, in which case international students or professionals come to Hawaii for customized training or educational experiences. These programs are typically non-credit and are organized through academic affairs as contract training programs. They can also generate revenue for institutions, the hosts, Kapiolani, through program fees. So some examples include workforce observation programs, professional development seminars, English plus professional themes, and other programs that have the foundation for transition to longer term programs. It's a really, really great way to get people here, low pressure, just more relaxed, and then give them an introduction to the campus and for credit options that are available. So many international programs begin with exploratory faculty visits. These visits allow faculty to travel to a partner institution, meet colleagues, and explore potential areas of collaboration. And during these visits, faculty might meet with faculty and administrators, industry partners, and discuss potential curriculum collaborations. During that time, they can begin to start drafting partnership agreements if it feels right, especially if UH already has an existing underlying partnership with the campus or institution. So these visits are often short and sometimes just a few days. You can tack that on to family trips as well if you're there and can make a quick stop and do some work. But they can go a very long way in terms of building trust and relationships, way beyond what you can do over email. Okay, so I wanted to give a quick timeline since we marked the start of a new inbound program at Kapiolani yesterday. So this shows a real example of how an international program was developed. So last March, we began an initial brainstorming conversation when we had visiting faculty from Okinawa here, actually in partnership with Manoa, and they were interested in partnering with Kapiolani given our mutual interest in indigenous serving perspectives. In June, it just so happened that I was in Tokyo and I took a quick trip to Okinawa to visit the University of the Ryukyu's Graduate School of Law. And that was my exploratory visit. And at that visit, I presented at a symposium on some research that I've been engaged with for their law school. And we had a chance to sit down and talk a little bit more about partnering formally with Kapiolani. So over the following months into the fall, our Okinawa partners and HIC and academic affairs work collaboratively to work on a customized program to really look at what our partners wanted to do here. And by January, we signed an MOA with them, and just weeks after, they were here. So we just launched the program yesterday, as I had mentioned, and really, really happy with like how much progressed over the course of a year. To share a little more, during my visit to the Ryudai Law School, I spent about a week with the faculty, the students, and legal professionals, just exchanging research interests, discussion about perspectives of legal education, and possible exchange opportunities. And I was really lucky that through that network, we've actually been able to create a new program. So the legal observation tour that just started looks a little bit like this. It's a week long of formal activities. We did some community activities over the weekend, which was probably a lot more intensive with local Okinawans to experience like their New Year's party and learn about the first immigrants from Okinawa that came to Hawaii and pay respects to those people and really get a deeper history that the students might not know about. And then they had the fortune of being hosted by our Chief Justice of the Hawaii Supreme Court, Sabrina McKenna, one of the first people to welcome them. And CJ gave a guest lecture at the chambers yesterday. And that's an experience that a lot of law students don't even get themselves. So today, I sent them to prison. Don't worry, it has nothing to do with ICE. They wanted this. I've never been to the prisons myself, and they couldn't get enough of it. So they're wrapping up their visit at state prison now, and they're just arriving at the federal prison. This presentation was too important for me to postpone, but also I'm kind of afraid of going to the prison. So I thought maybe I'll just be here today and just stay out of jail a little bit longer. So after that, they're going to be spending some time in the drug court to learn about different perspectives of criminal justice. And we kind of hear this comparison of the US being on one end of the extreme with really looking at like punitive measures to deter criminal activity. And then on the other end, having a more progressive approach to rehabilitation, education, and helping people reintegrate in society, and Japan kind of being in the middle. So it's really interesting for the Okinawan students to experience where Hawaii is at and go to the drug court with Judge Clarissa Maliano on Thursday and hear her perspective, because I think Hawaii is really progressive in that sense and trying to look at more rehabilitative perspectives. So that really says, why Kapiolani, why Hawaii, why us? We are really like the best and ideal host that they couldn't get if they were in some boring place like Washington, D.C. All right. Before I move on, I wanted to check in with everyone if they had any questions about exchange program types. So we just remember we can either go explore overseas, host people. Also, we didn't talk about that much, but we can host people through programs like the Humphrey Fellow Hosting Program. There's a call for Fulbright scholars in residence. So if you're interested in hosting people, it can be as short as a weekend. It could be as long as a year. So we have the benefit of being in a really beautiful place that everybody wants to come to. And we've had people host successfully. So we have a really solid reputation when it comes to hosting fellows. So please talk to the HIC team if you're interested in hosting. Next, we're going to talk about the extramural funding landscape. And there's been a lot of changes in 2025. I don't know why. Maybe it has something to do with the White House, but worry not, there are ways forward. I wanted to talk about three distinct categories. There's institutional funding, which supports programs administered by the college. There's individual fellowships and scholarships, which are awarded directly to faculty, administrators, or students to go overseas. And there's external grants that are provided by federal agencies and private and corporate sponsors. And those are also made to the institution and help us fund different programs as well as individual scholarships. So let's take a closer look at this. I'm sorry for so much text, but broadly what I'm trying to talk about here is there are two paths to applying for institutional funding, and you have support with each. I'll circulate these slides so that everybody is aware. If you're applying for government funding or funding that has to go through the University of Hawaii, you're going to be working through our friends at the Office of Research Services. I see some principal investigators in the room, and they can attest to the wonderful amount of compliance and paperwork you have to do to go through this route. But don't worry, I'll work with you through this process. It does take some time and a whole lot of emails with your supervisors, but we'll do what we can to get you to where you need to be. The other is looking at individual funding through fellowships, scholarships, and awards. And these are the ones that go directly to the individual. And you would apply directly to the national sponsor that's offering these, like Council of American Overseas Research Centers. They've got, like, I think two-week community college faculty and administrator seminars. There's been some pretty interesting ones in India, Mexico, and other parts of the world. And I think Dr. Shao Shuk went to Africa a couple years ago on a CARC seminar, and she's been like really active with her program after. They offer grants to follow up and do more programs after the experience. Wanted to look a little bit more about fellowships and awards and just offer a couple of opportunities to think about. So the Fulbright International Education Administrator Awards come every year, and the application is usually due around wintertime. It does require a couple of letters of support, so it's good to think about that early and look at last year's application just in case you want to apply. So I did notice that there's less countries offered now through Fulbright. Before, there was Japan and a whole number of countries that you could apply to, but I think the list was short, maybe just 2 selections last year. And these are 2-week experiences, and we have a bunch of CC faculty at other campuses that have participated in that. So we can connect with them if you have questions about the application process as well as the experience and how it affected their career afterward. The next is the CAORC seminar, which I mentioned briefly earlier that Dr. Shook participated in. Earlier I mentioned that I went through the Critical Language Scholarship, which was administered through CAORC. It's an international education agency based in Washington, D.C., and CAORC has been really supportive and on top of things in terms of working with organizations. Most of them are going to be good, but I think CAORC is like a gold standard to work with, them and IIE, Institute for International Education. So for students, you're probably thinking about opportunities that the superstars that are ready to compete nationally might be interested in, and I'm happy to share that these opportunities are open to community college students. And having participated in selection review committees, I can assure you that they are looking specifically to include community college students. So I know one of the barriers is that CC students don't have access to 4 levels, like 4 through the 4th year level of foreign language. So some of these programs don't have a prior language prerequisite, and you can apply to certain critical languages to just take beginning level. So the 3 I wanted to share today are the Critical Language Scholarship. I did the first program in South Korea, I think in 2007. And so they've got like a bunch of different countries that align with languages offered at Kapiolani, as well as those that we don't offer that you can take as like a first-time language student in that area. The next is the Benjamin A. Gilman International Scholarship. This one requires Pell eligibility. So there aren't going to be many students that are going to qualify for Gilman. One thing to note is there's a Gilman-McCain thread that is, it offers more funding, I think more than just the regular $5,000 award. And so veterans are also eligible for a special Gilman Scholarship. And the next is a David L. Boren Scholarship, which you can apply through either Kapiolani or at a four-year institution. So this is specifically for undergraduate study and ideal for students who want to go into federal careers in the intelligence community. I think that people that are majoring in fields like, say, ICS would be competitive for this. And so Boren allows you to apply to a lot of language study in a lot of different countries worldwide, but the catch is that it has to be a critical language. So some of the more popular languages, like, say, Japanese, may not be classified as a critical language at the beginner intermediate level, but if you're advanced, the graduate fellowship might qualify you for Boren funding. Okay, next, federal grants. They're not all canceled. The major ones have been paused or eliminated, so I do want to recognize that the Foreign Language Area Studies fellowships offered at the National Resource Centers at Manoa, that's been put on pause. We're not sure about Fulbright Hayes. That one seems to be continuing, but maybe not funded at the level that it used to be. But we have been looking with HIC at a couple of opportunities that we can pursue. There's, for example, World Learning offers the Ideas Grant, which can either be for workshops, conferences, or programs abroad. And we successfully applied for a World Learning Grant 2 years ago, I think, to host some visits and speakers from Okinawa. Let's see, next is the National Science Foundation, which surprisingly has overseas research opportunities, which might not be as explicit, but if you're interested in pursuing that, please let us know and we can look into that further. I have here 100K Strong in the Americas as an example. Professor Alejandro Salinas Nakanishi successfully applied to this, but this was one of the early grants that got canceled last year. He still has a partnership with North Island College and University of Colima in Mexico. So he's found alternate funding to go forward with the partnership even without the 100K Strong. Okay, and let's not forget, there are foreign funding opportunities. So recently, HIC's partnered with the University of the Ryukyus, and there's government funding through their Ministry of Education, Sports, and Technology, is it mixed? For a 5-year inter-island sustainability grant, which offers both in-person and COIL instruction, and it's partnerships between several UHCC campuses, UH Hilo, institutions in Taiwan, and institutions in Okinawa. So that's a really neat multi-country, multi-institution partnership. Next, Dr. Berestecki is in conversation with the European Union, and his chances of securing some EU funding as a first time for Kapiolani is very, very strong. I think his research in Liberia has really put him in a good spot to be able to compete for these funds. And then again, Alejandro's successful application to 100K Strong is another great example I'd like to lean on. As a quick reminder, we have resources available. There's the new UH Office of Strategic Philanthropic Partnerships, UH OSPP. I wish they had a easy acronym to remember them by. These are folks that kind of build the bridge between UH and foundation, and they're here to chat with you and do consultations. So you can have a general idea. Basically what we shared earlier this morning about countries you're interested in or programs that you're interested in, that's more than enough to start a conversation. And the foundation team will know more or less if there are active donors or corporate sponsors that focus in those areas. So if you need help or an introduction connecting with the team, be happy to do that with you and develop a concept paper. Next, we have the opportunity for institutional funds. So if there's ever a question from HIC through a survey, if you support redirecting a portion of tuition and fees to support exploratory visits or study abroad, I suggest choosing yes and recommending that. Finally, we have the endowment from our former chancellor to support study abroad. And Sean, will you please remind me of the endowment name?
International Travel.
So the Queen Kapiolani International Travel Fund has supported several cohorts of students that went to Ireland, I think that you led, yeah? And that has been a really, really awesome connection and good boost for Kapiolani. Okay, that's the end of the grants section. I want to pause real quickly to see if anyone has questions or feedback before we go to the final section. Okay, thanks for letting me get through all the fun, tedious details. So next, we'll talk about budgeting and program planning. This is just to help you kind of like take some notes in your iPhone. I mean, for me, it lived in my iPhone, and that's what I did on my morning walks. I just had ideas come to me, and I didn't want to lose them, so I just kept adding to things and was eventually able to get to an MOA in a program. So wanted to offer some tips from someone who's gone through the process, and also hear tips from you on brainstorming. So when we talk about budgeting, I think there's some costs that are super clear and obvious to us, like travel or the costs associated with that. But I think having a list is helpful for us, and maybe we can go through that together to just kind of, think when we see each other on campus, let's say like, well, how's that program going with nursing? Like, have we started to think about like a budget, even a general budget? Because I think one of the most challenging thing to do is get a call from your colleague at 5 p.m. on a Friday and say, I've got this awesome grant, but it's due in a couple of days, and then you have to figure out the budget. So this is a really, really good way to kind of empower yourself to thinking about this. So beyond just airfare and lodging, I'm sure you've heard about the term M&IE, meals and incidental expenses, and there's a government schedule that shows wherever you go in the world by city, there's a daily rate, and that just helps you calculate, even if you don't have your hotel and everything scheduled. The M&IE rate is a way for you to get like an accurate calculation of what your trip would cost, knowing if you go for a week, it's the M&IE daily rate times 7. Next is your ground transportation. Don't forget, you have to get to the airport, both here and there, and around destinations. And if you are brave enough to rent a car and drive overseas, I commend you. Please teach me. I'll never do it, but I probably should. Don't forget your traveler's insurance. That's a must for everyone traveling, especially students. It's well worth it, and usually when we are grant funded, it's a requirement. And then just be aware if there are any partner institution costs that are associated. On the campus side, if you're doing something that is funded through grants, there's costs that can get picked up that we might not think about in our daily lives. Those are the time for your commitments, and especially if it's during the off-duty period, we'll want to make sure that there's overload or other compensation factored in, and with that comes fringe benefits. If you don't know what the fringe benefit rate is, that's totally normal. Just ask me. If I have it memorized, it's a good day. If I don't, that's probably just me being sleepy. Also, speaker honoraria is a good thing to think about. And we have indirect costs for our campus when we apply for grants. And if you do things through the campus, I think there might be an admin fee to factor in addition to everything else. So some responsibilities to highlight. This is a really exciting world. My personal philosophy is to stay in the space of being excited and like really lean into your vision. But just know that through the process, there's just so many forms that are not super friendly. And hopefully this is just like a good break the ice list to help us all remember what we might be asked to sign when we do these kinds of programs. So the first being compliance. That's travel related. You might be working with contracts. If you're hosting people from overseas, you'll go through UH Systems export controls, and that's through, they're just checking if anybody has any foreign ties like spies or intelligence activities. So just be aware of compliance. The next is student risk management. I know that everyone in the classroom knows about that. So you're probably in a space to educate me about student risk management. The next is financial stewardship of campus accounts. That's a fun journey. We can talk about that offline if you have questions. Alignment with UH and campus approval processes, because there might be some internal checks and people that sign different stages. So if you can, just ask if there's a process map or a checklist to kind of get started. And if you don't, I'd suggest looking at the list that HIC provided of people that went through the process, because they can kind of help you anticipate some of the things and come up with a timeline. Also, realistic workload planning. I will say I sleep a lot less planning the trip. And because of the severe weather that's here, I'm now having to figure out, once my friends get out of jail today, what our plan is for tomorrow. And we're actively changing our itinerary so that they're not driving. And we've got like scenario A, we're here in the Engage space. Scenario B, we're on Zoom. We're just anticipate that there are like all kinds of fun things that pop up in this, but you will survive and overcome it. And also, don't forget to build in recognition through the tenure and promotion process. Even before you personally do that, also look for those opportunities when you see that in colleagues' package to uplift that and just say that that is also something that we want to uplift at the community colleges. I think the more that we do that, the more support there will be. So I want to end with some next steps and campus resources. Good way to kind of just help us plan before we take the deep dive in. So real quickly, there are conferences. Sean put together a really awesome comprehensive list of study abroad conferences that you can go to. And don't worry, you don't have to be working at HIC or the equivalent to fit in at these conferences. Some of these are most attended by faculty who are interested and may not have experience with that. They can connect you with private providers who build programs for a living, and those private providers can really make it easy. You can just say, I want to take students to this country to do this kind of focus, and then they take care of everything for you. So networking is really powerful through those different conferences and virtual connection opportunities. Also think about hosting, even if it's something informal, like dropping in when we have visiting inbound groups or faculty with us, because those are the people that you can connect with when you travel or work with their institution. Serve, if you are willing to open your home and host, if there's a program that requires a local host, then that's another good opportunity. And of course, don't forget to contact HIC for Honda International Center at hawaii.edu. Really easy way to reach out to the team. You can also schedule consultations if you're looking for funding with the OSPP. That's our friends with the foundation or the grants office. We're down the hall from the bookstore, so if you go and get your coffee, just drop in. Let's talk about your interest in international programs and grants. Happy to support you and keep a conversation ongoing. And then we will be hosting grantsmanship workshops throughout the semester. Also, thanks to Gigi for providing the Engage space. We provide food. They will be on some Fridays from 12 to 2. Our next session will be on Friday, March 25th. And we're really open to covering anything you want to. It's intended for you to just drop in and chat. Even if the scheduled topic doesn't pertain to study abroad, we can certainly talk about that because that's something we're working on all the time. You can also complete the PI onboarding process with the grants office. It does take days to do, so bits and pieces is probably, it's almost like getting your vaccinations. I'm sorry, it's like not the most fun thing to do, but if you do it before you apply for grants, I think that would probably be the ideal situation. And then finally, just a compilation of contacts. You have HIC, who are the in-house experts. You've got the grants office, who can help you look for funding and also speak to different national scholarship review committees that the team has served on. You've got Asia at the UH Foundation, who can help us connect to private funding sources, and the OSPP at the system, who does consultations with faculty. So mahalo again for attending today's session, and I look forward to many, many more conversations with you. Thank you. You're welcome.